Welcome to the Property Mindset Podcast, where I'm Emma Howitt, and I'm very excited to have John Howard here with me today. And basically, I am a mentor, investor, and a guide to building wealth, freedom, and personal transformation through property. And property isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about building the life you truly desire. And in this space, we don't just talk about strategy, we deep dive into mindset, something that I have found is missing in every other industry, but has been a real game changer in the professional property circles. So today I am very thrilled to have John Howard here with me. John is one of the UK's most experienced property consultants, developer, trader, investor, with over 4 decades of experience within the industry. He has been involved in sale and purchase of over 4,500 houses, apartments, developments across the UK, ranging from traditional houses to hotels and large-scale developments. So let's turn our dreams into actions and actions into success. Hello, John. How are you?
I'm very well, Emma. How are you?
Fantastic. So John and I actually met on the Property Graduate a number of years ago, and that was quite. I did manage to get through a couple of the series. So
I thought you did very well. I think you're a bit overqualified in the end.
Well, it was it was a really great experience and a little bit nerve-wracking, but a lot of fun as well. So that was my introduction. So I'm just going to jump straight in, John. You are, an absolute powerhouse. So you started in property at just 17 and have now completed, as we've mentioned, thousands of deals across 4 decades. Now, looking back, what mindset or core belief do you credit most with sustaining your drive and resilience through so many market cycles and challenges?
I think 2 things. Am I allowed to have 2 things?
You can have as many as you want, John.
Okay, thank you. One of them would be the fear of not being able to pay your tax in January. I think. Of being self-employed, which most property investors, developers are one way or the other. So I think the fear, you need a bit of fear, because if you don't see fear, then you don't see danger. And I find that quite a lot with the number of investors. They don't see any danger in what you're doing. They don't see any fear. And you always need to have an out before you have an in. And you always need to de-risk deals before you end up signing on the dotted line to buy them. And I think caution, fear perhaps is the wrong word, but certainly caution, but also dogged determination, being consistent every single day. Every day I wake up thinking, how am I going to make some money today? What deal can I do? Now, we all know that these bloody deals take months to get over the line sometimes, unless, of course, you buy an auction, which is a much, much quicker process.
Fantastic. I love that. And you talk about this dogged determination, but that must have some kind of background to it, because we all get up, we all go off and do whatever it is, and something drives us. What is it that really drives you? Do you have a why? Do you have kind of a what is it that makes you get up and continue to do that? Because this has been a long career.
Yes, it has been a long career, and I've survived 3 or 4 property recessions and all the rest of it. I think initially, it goes back to the fact that academically I wasn't very bright at school. I stammered until I was 19, and then they say you never stop stammering, but I honestly don't believe that. And when I look back, all my people I still do deals with now, certainly based in Ipswich here in Suffolk, a lot of them didn't go out of Suffolk in terms of doing deals, and have done incredibly well by sticking locally. And I would say the one common denominator with all of them is not one of them went to university. None of us went to university. We said we had to find something to do. We were perhaps more natural entrepreneurs because of that, because I think if you go to university, you have the idea of obtaining a good job, and all the rest of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the problem with universities these days, there's too many courses that really aren't very, very valuable. And if you haven't got a valuable graduation, then I think you're far better off to be an apprentice. And I think most of us cut our teeth in the estate agency, and that was the apprenticeship in those days. And there's a new breed of investors now. They're much more intelligent than we ever were. They've been successful in other businesses, and they've come into the property via property education. And there's good education around, and there's some pretty awful education around. And I'm very passionate about good education and people not spending a fortune if they don't need to, and so on. So I think I would say, the fear initially, in a way, of making a living and having success. I mean, my mother always used to remind me of, I used to, try and buy and sell lawnmowers out the front of the house and bikes and things. And she always used to tell me to get rid of them because the neighbours didn't like it, and all the rest of it. So, if you're an entrepreneur, it's a natural process. And there's lots and lots of different ways of making money out of property, lots of different ways. And you don't have to be a natural entrepreneur to do so, or natural trader, dealer. There's lots of ways you can do it without that. Investing, for instance, long-term in HMOs and all the rest of it is a much safer process probably than actually doing some of the things I do now, which is taking on, challenging projects, some of which go very well, some of which don't go as well as you hope. That's just life. And I think if you can get to a point where 7 out of 10 of your developments are successful, that is a good ratio. Genuinely a good ratio. And I was talking to a very, very successful friend of mine who's done much better than I have. He's got a country house with 200 acres rolling down to the River Stewart. I mean, he's very, very, very successful. And I said to him the other day, we had a coffee, and I said, and we do some deals together actually, but I said to him the other day, how many deals honestly are you successful with? And he said 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. And I think people must appreciate that nothing's perfect. Whatever you think of the deal to start with, that will probably change during the process. And you need to have an out before you have an in. And you need more than one option. Very important to have more than one option if you can.
Yeah, very, very powerful. And stepping back to what you sort of spoke about as what drives you. And one of the things was that you felt that you weren't that academic. Yeah. So it was almost like you felt, you had to almost work harder. And I certainly, I mean, I did go to university, but there was a few of us who got Desmond's, who got the 2-2. And mine was genuinely because I just partied ridiculously.
Emma, that doesn't surprise me in the least.
So I actually miss more lectures than some of my friends even had lectures because I did science and stuff. But I do now, we're obviously much older. The people who got the 2-2s and the ones who got the first and the and the 2-1s, I feel that they almost felt like they succeeded. They didn't need to have that drive and determination. No. So actually, a few knocks here and there is not a bad thing.
I totally agree, and I think, I just think there's too many people going to university. University is a wonderful thing in our day, and I'm not saying this is right, by the way, because I think it was too much the other way. But I mean, if you went to university, it was a big deal. Crikey, you're going to university. Wow, well done. It was that sort of, and I think that's how it should be now. They've converted Tony Blair, of course, converted all these techs and everything into universities and call them universities. But some of the subjects they're teaching, I mean, come on, it's crackers. And I think the apprenticeship route is far, far more sensible for most people. You earn money as you go along. You get into the into property much earlier probably, and all the rest. No debt. And there's good examples. Apart from obviously the trades, which is we haven't got enough bricklayers, we haven't got enough sparkies, we haven't got enough plasterers, because they're all messing around at university, finding themselves, apparently is the term they use, don't they, for the first year. What a waste of bloody time that is.
Keep the pubs open.
Yeah, absolutely. Even accountants do a very good apprenticeship now where you don't need to go to university. So I mean, it is happening. And the Tory government should have done an awful lot more of it. They didn't do enough of it. This Labour government, well, we'll have to see what they do. But, I think apprenticeships are absolutely vital.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I want to go back to property, but just to respond to that, I think absolutely. For me, I've got two 19-year-old boys. Neither of them were academic. And I do have obviously all my peers, all their kids are going off to university.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I've sent them off. They've gone down very different routes, but I want them to go and see the world, experience lots of different things. One of them's very definite of what he wants to do. Brilliant, go and do that.
Yeah,
the other one is a bit more, I'm not really quite sure. So right, go off, do this, do that, try all these different things, obviously earn money along the way.
Absolutely.
And go and do that rather than being hauled up in a university place and coming out with ridiculous amounts of debt. And that really, what if you can borrow that kind of money, let's go and put it into property and take it there. So yeah, no, very, very interesting. I like that. So just sort of, stepping back from, a moment sort of earlier on in your career with property, when was kind of the first time that your mindset was really, truly tested, and how were you able to overcome that challenge?
Well, I think your mind is tested every day. I mean, even now, for instance, a lot of people say I've been relatively successful, but I've got challenges every day, and anyone who thinks they're getting into property are not going to have challenges and not knowing and needing to know how you can get out of those challenges. It's so important, and I always say when I do my masterclass, that actually it's as much about de-risking deals and also working out ways of dealing with issues and problems and anticipating them before they happen, than it is as much about everyone wants to know, how do I find a deal? Well, it's all very well, but having found that deal, that's just the start of the process, not the end of it. And you find the deal, it's a journey. And someone said to me the other day, you're a problem solver, aren't you, John, really? And I thought about that, and I thought, you know what, everybody in property, whether you're doing an HMO, whether you're doing rent to rent, whether you're doing developments or anything in between, you are exactly that. You're a problem solver. You're solving problems. The biggest thing is, do not take a problem on you can't solve. Do not, and the same, I always say this with auctions, do not, every property you buy at auction has got a problem. In fact, every property you buy has got a problem. Otherwise, you wouldn't be buying it. Let's be honest, it would be going to someone not in the property dealing or investment market. It would be going as a private house or whatever. So every property you buy has got a challenge, and it's being able to deal with that challenge. And if you can't deal with it, if it's not possible, and I always say when people are buying at auction and buy a lot at auction, is that the first thing to make sure is whatever the problem is, you can solve it. Because if you can't solve it, don't buy it. And also, if the person who you're going to sell it on to, or if you want a mortgage, you've got to think, is that property mortgageable? And if it isn't mortgageable, can I make it mortgageable? And if I can't do so in a short period of time, I probably shouldn't be buying it in the first place.
Yeah, that was one of the things actually when I was obviously doing some more research and listening to interviews with you. I really loved that you said every deal that I go into, I expect the problems. I expect there to be problems, because there's only so much due diligence you can do. There's always going to be a certain amount of unexpected, and there's always going to be a certain amount of potential things just changing, whether it's COVID, whether it's a new government, whatever it is. So that actually made me feel better, because quite often, sometimes you do feel like you're just constantly clamoring with problems. I mean, and then there are times when obviously you do have some good things. So when you said that to me, I was kind of like, wow, that really resonates, that you just got to go into this kind of world of property with that expectation. I mean, I suspect it's probably like that in most businesses as well. But obviously we're talking about property. So yeah, that was really powerful for me when you said that.
Well, I think, and that's all mindset, isn't it? It's all about being able to manage the challenges and the problems you're going to face without anxiety, if possible, and that's difficult. I appreciate that. Without feeling yourself under too much, and don't put yourself under too much pressure financially if you can help it. because that, the biggest thing I will always, if I'm ever having I don't really, I sleep well because I've got no conscience because I'm a property developer. But the one thing, my one nightmare would be waking up and not having enough money to feed my family or whatever it might be, or my entourage, or pay for everything. And of course, the more money you earn, the more entourage you have. That's life. And then the difficulty is, if people get into financial trouble, is the dismantling the entourage, and they try and keep it going too long because of pride and everything else that comes in. So my one fear is not being able to pay the bills, if I have a fear, and that's what keeps you honest and keeps you sharp, and all the rest of it. But yeah, it is a challenge, and it's not for everyone, and you get these property educators saying, oh yeah, anyone can do it, it's easy, blah blah blah, but they can't, and not everyone can, and not everyone's natural at it. I'm a natural dealer. Ideally, I wouldn't develop anything. I would buy and sell every day of the week if I could. I'm not that interested in what somebody's going to look like by the time it's done, because I've done it. I'd rather buy it, get planning and sell it and take a profit. So, but of course I have to develop property, because sometimes I can't do that, and I have to end up developing it and sorting it. So there's lots of different ways, as we said earlier, making money out of property. And if you are very cautious, or you worry, and you worry about things, and you have a lot of anxiety, then maybe the answer is to let someone else invest that money for you. You don't have to be at the front of the game, the front of the show. You can be you can be behind the scenes, investing. You can be careful how you do that, and who you do that with. But there's nothing wrong with that. You don't think that. I go and speak at these events on a regular basis, and I come away, and I'm the speaker, and I come away thinking, crikey, these people are doing much better than me, especially the men. The men do exaggerate, as you know, Emma. So, don't feel, don't ever feel, less important than someone else, or anything else when you go to these events. Because to be honest with you, most people are making out everything is wonderful and nothing ever goes wrong. And my goodness, we all know that's not true. And in life in general as well. So don't beat yourself up about that, and don't feel because you don't want to be that perhaps inspiring person at the front of the team, finding deals, pushing yourself forward. You don't have to be. You can be in the middle, or you can be at the back and be just as important. Every entrepreneur probably needs a backer of some sort, and you can potentially be that backer, or that investor, or long-term investment is super safe. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to put your neck on the line every 5 minutes if you don't want to. So there's lots of different ways, and I think depending on your mental ability and your mindset depends on what you should be doing.
Yeah, that's really strong. Especially, so I deal, a lot with service accommodation. I've got a hotel,
yeah,
and I find it really interesting. Obviously, we're now very fortunate to have like Booking.com, Airbnb, and so there's a lot of people that will perhaps get a rent to rent, or change a buy to let into serviced accommodation. And the interesting thing is when at certain stages the bookings don't come in. So obviously it could be to do with not doing your due diligence, because obviously you have to do that pre stuff. But in business, there is always going to be ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And I have to, and one of the things I often say with people is, you've got to understand, if you had done all this research and you knew that this would work, whether it's selling, I don't know, glasses, or whether it's doing this, well, you're happening to do property stays. What other ways are you going to do? You can't just rely on, Booking.com and Airbnb and things like that. And that kind of sort of leads me on to my next question is, over the years, you've managed to really stay adaptable, open-minded. Obviously, the property market has massively changed. The world around you has massively changed. But you have also sort of gone into various elements as well. You've done your development, but you've also done your auction house. You've also done your estate agency. was that a reflection of these changes as well?
I think partly so, Emma. So, most of the time, property is all about relationships. It's all about who you know. And that's the most important thing. It's not data. It's not anything else. In my view, it's relationships. It's who you knew, who you get on with, who you trust, and working together. And I know a lot of people. So when, for instance, Brian Baxter of Auction House UK rang me up, I was actually at a stallion show in Holland, but that's another story.
And hence, everyone who can see me, I'm wearing my
exactly.
horse hat.
We're both horses. So I'm at a stallion show in Holland with my wife in 2008-9, and I get a call from Brian Baxter. I say, "Hi, Brian. I've known Brian for 25 years by then, 20 years, bought property off the auction, known him a long time." He said, "John, do you fancy getting involved with Auction House?" So I said, "Oh, yeah, could do." So that led to us buying a stake in Auction House, and then I brought in another great friend of mine, Jeremy Pryor, who I went to school with. So and then eventually Jeremy's now bought out the rest of us and owns it all himself. So it's all about relationships, and because we bought Auction House, we inherited Fine and Country in Norfolk, which was a business they also owned. So then we got back into being an estate agent. I said I'd never be one again, but there we go. We've got 5 offices now in Norfolk, and that does very well. So one thing leads to another, but it all leads to another because of relationships. And I think relationships are the mainstay. But I've always tried to be one step ahead. So, for instance, in the early 90s or late 80s, we were buying tower blocks off local authorities because they were blowing them up, and it cost them 500,000 to blow up a tower block in those days. A lot of money. And so they would give you the tower blocks virtually because it saves them 500,000 quid. So we got into tower blocks, refurbished them and sold them to first-time buyers. That market then dipped because of the recession in 92. So then we started buying listed buildings in town centres that have been offices that would go back to residential. That sounds familiar these days, doesn't it? So we were doing that, and then people caught up and more people started doing that. So we came out of that, we went into something else, and so on. So all the way through, we've tried to keep one step ahead. It's been harder in more recent years because the market, there's a lot more people doing property than there was when I first started. Because when I first started, you needed to put 50% down. That's the maximum loan you could get, and 50% on any building work. So, and the bank always wanted you to put the building work in, your money in first, and then they'd put their money in. That's all changed. And it all really, really changed after 2008 recession, 2009, because all these bridging companies turned up and said, "Look, I tell you what we'll do, we'll lend you 60-70% of purchase price, plus we'll pay for all the build costs." And that has opened it up to so many more people. Dangerous, mind you, because you can borrow too much money. If you do too good a job in refinancing or too good a job to start with in borrowing money, it can get you into trouble. So you do need to be sensible about that. But it has all changed, and we've changed with it. We're now, recently we've been buying properties that are part finished, which are because there's been a lot of problems in the housing market, and there's a lot of people that have gone bankrupt, part finished stock. So we buy quite a lot of receivers. That's quite dangerous. It's tricky stuff. We work on big margins because we're not sure, we can't do all the due diligence, like you said earlier, Emma, sometimes. So we have to work on big margins to do that. And even then, sometimes it's not great. And more recently, ahead of that, I've been buying property that literally needs a grant to make it work, a government grant, which is you think it's a bit mad. Why are you buying it? Well, we don't always. We paid £1 for a tower block the other week, but we need a grant to make it work off the government, which I think we'll get. But it has come, sort of, things come full circle, and there's nothing new in property, by the way. Rent to rent, for instance, sounds a great term, doesn't it? Oh, rent to rent. You mean subletting? That's what it is, subletting. There's nothing new in that. That's been going around for 400, 500, 600, 700 years probably, you know. So there's nothing really new. These educators just spin it. They spin it, you know, and you know, they're there to, people must realize that they're there to, some of them do nothing else but education, and that's their job and that's their business. Some are good at it, some aren't. But you know, as I said, I'm dubious about some of them, like you are, I'm sure, Emma.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't want to comment on anyone
No,
or anything like that. But
we don't want to get sued.
No, exactly. No, definitely not. But when you talk about this one step ahead, I mean, that is something that's like a, you know, a crystal ball, isn't it? Understanding these things. How do you feel that you've been able to be in that position to perhaps spot things, perhaps be open-minded? We spoke about this, having this kind of open mind, because sometimes, as you say, like I mean, I read what was it? I can't remember the book, but it was from like 1910, and it talked about other people's money, OPM, and I was a bit like, oh, was there other people's money in those days? And it's like, of course there was. But we think like rent to rent. Oh, well, that's all, you know, all today. So how is it that you think you've been able to be open-minded and keep this one step ahead?
I think two things really. One is that I've been at the sharp end, at the coalface, where I can see what's going on, you know, auctions especially. So I always say auctions are the barometer of the property market. Whatever happens in auctions normally happens everywhere else 6 to 9 months later. So I think being, and we've always bought at auction. So I think buying at auction and being at the sharp end of it and dealing, I think gives you that ability to see the whole of the market a bit better than perhaps if you're just doing HMOs or just doing this or just doing that. I think you do need to hang your hat on something though, because if you say to an agent, oh, I want to buy properties, and they go, great, okay, well, what do you want to buy? Well, I'll buy anything. Well, they're not going to show you, they're not going to give you anything. So you do at some point have to hang your hat on, you know, where it's, oh, we buy HMOs, or we buy listed buildings, convert into flats, or we buy new sites, new development sites. So you do need to have, you know, something for them to hang the hat on. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be open to other ideas. And with my masterclass, it's a comprehensive 2 days because everything is linked, Emma. So, you know, commercial to residential, mixed use property, auctions, all these things are in the melting pot. And you need, even if you don't want to do one particular part of it, you need to understand it, because otherwise you won't recognize the deal when it's there. And even if it's not a deal you want to do, the whole point is you've got all these new friends around you. You can sell it to them because they might be doing something different to you. And what I find with these property events that I go to is that I don't see a lot of dealing going on. I see an awful lot of people telling everyone how wonderful they're doing and how it's all working brilliantly. And a lot of them are investors and aren't sort of at the sharp end, if you like. I understand that. But, you know, I don't see many people saying, well, you know what, I'm just buying this. I don't need all of it. There's a house at the end of the drive. Do you want to buy it and refurbish it? I don't see that happening. And in the old days, that happened all the time. And I think whether people haven't got the confidence or just aren't interested in buying property of other people, but you're in a room of 100 people. My goodness, there should be deals going on everywhere, shouldn't there? And there isn't. There isn't. So I don't understand that at all. Whether it's a lack of confidence, could be, not sure.
So do you encourage that in your you know, in your trainings, in your education and things like that?
Absolutely, because it's, you know, I don't get, I get a modest amount of people at my 2 days because I tell the truth. and you know, I tend to deal with people who have got money and want to do more in property or want to pivot to something else in property. But I mean, afterwards they all start dealing with each other because that's, you know, because they've met like-minded people with money or whatever it might be. And what you do find, these property clubs and everything else are so good for the industry, I think, because you're meeting like-minded people in a room. You know, if you can't find a few people to invest in your deals or buy and sell with, or, you know, the first thing I'd be asking anyone if I'm in that room is, what have you got I can buy? What have you got? What have you just bought? What have you seen that you don't want, that you think I might like? you know, and they don't seem to do that. And I think that's a real shame. I don't understand it, to be honest with you. I always try and every time I go to one of these events, I always bring a deal with me, something someone can buy. You know, I say, well, I've got right. The first thing I do, I've got a deal for you tonight. This is it. We just bought this. We've got a property on the side that we're happy to sell on straight away. Come and see me afterwards. Do you know what? No, hardly anyone comes to see me afterwards, and I find that amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. And actually, yeah, I really that is very mind-opening, actually, because definitely there are lots of opportunities, but I think sometimes when you've bought your little plot, it's almost like maybe it's perceived as a failure if you feel that this part you aren't able to use. I don't know, but yeah, very.
But Emma, you know, you'll ring me up and say, what have you got, or if we're at an event together, you'll say, well, what's happening? You know, what's happening? You know, because I said that's the bit I really find, because the deals that I've been successful on, more successful, aren't always the really big deals, the sort of 150 flat deals you do. They're hard, you know, that's tough. It's a tough gig.
Yeah.
The ones that I've been more successful on probably are the ones where there's got three elements to it. So, for instance, we just bought a school, a former school in Essex here, in Essex, not far away. And we've got the main school building, which we're going to get 14 flats out of. We've got a barn, which we're going to convert. Well, we're not going to get planning and then sell on. We've got the headmaster's house that we can sell on straight away. So that's three elements. So I've already sold on the headmaster's house to someone I know. Straight away, I picked the phone up. I said, "Do you want to refurbish it?" "Yeah, I love one, John. Where is it?" Yeah, bang, done. And we're buying another building, which is a former office building, and it's got a church, well, it's still a Methodist church down the road, which is included. We don't want it, but I've sold it on the same day to someone else I know. So we're not paying for it. We're just paying for the main bit we want. So that's what it's about, I think. But, you know, maybe not everyone sees it the same way. Some people want to sweat the asset to such an extent that, you know, they don't want anyone else to make money out of a property. They don't want to. And that's, I think, the wrong mindset. We're talking about mindset. That's the wrong mindset. The mindset is always leave something in for the next person. Because you know what, Emma? They'll come back with another deal. And I've been dealing with the same people for 30 odd years, some of them, 35 years. Some of them have given up now, by the way, and retired, but I'm still going. But I mean, you know, and that's because they know they can have a deal, and I know I can have a deal with them.
It's definitely this sort of whole creativity, thinking differently. So, which really leads me on to your sort of big real success that you have in being known for being able to revive failed developments, basically. You find that opportunity perhaps where others have only seen a risk. So that takes, you know, a lot of guts. What kind of, you know, mental habits or perspectives help you kind of spot that value where others have absolutely walked away, not just for months, but for years in you know, some of the projects that you've done?
Yeah. Well, I always say, to get the answer, ask the question. To get the answer, ask the question. The question is, what's the worst scenario? What's the best scenario? And then if you know what the worst scenario is, and you can live with the worst scenario, which is, well, we bought it, we can do bugger all with it, excuse my French. We're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to battle on, do this, do that, and try and, you know, it's not going to cost us. It's not going to end up bankrupting us or anything else. If that's the worst scenario, that you just got a bit of egg on your face, but it's not going to hurt you financially, particularly. It's just going to sit there a bit longer. The best scenario is that you can get it done, make some money out of it. And more importantly than just making some money out of it, it gives you that profile that other people will bring deals to you. So, for instance, a good example of that is on Ipswich Waterfront here. Now, it's easier for me because I know a lot of people in Ipswich, and, you know, it's where I live and everything else. So we did the wine rack on Ipswich Waterfront, which was a part finished scheme. We've completed it, 150 flats, 38 million resales, borrowed 20 million from Homes England, which is a government bank. But that gives you credibility. So further down along the waterfront, there was another building that's had all sorts of problems, and they wanted a few £1 million for it, this, that, and the other. And then last Christmas, I got a phone call from the receivers, Hi, John. It's the same receiver that we dealt with on the last one. We've come to the end, which means they can't make any money out of it. That's what the receiver means when they say come to an end. They can't. They've squeezed every last penny out of it, and now they need to shift it sharpish. Do you want it? I say, well, when you say want, do I want it? No, I don't want it. It's an absolute pain in the arse, but I might be tempted. What do you want to do? So, well, you can have for £1. That's 85 flats. The tower's built. It's the tallest building in Suffolk. And we still need a grant to make it work, would you believe? But we're a fair way to doing that. And then at the rear of the building, the original developer sold 215 flats, but the cladding wasn't correct. So we've got to reclad 215 flats for the residents. At the moment, their flats are worthless, but hopefully by the time we've finished doing the cladding, they'll be back to what they should be worth in the open market. And we're working with Homes England, which is the government bank. We're working up with the Levelling Up Fund. I never knew what the Levelling Up Fund did, but it does fund all the grant work for the cladding. So, one thing leads to another is really what I'm saying, Emma. So if you get in on one thing, the same people may offer you another and another and another and another. And that's what happens with me on a number of projects, not just with the council or grant or people like that, but also with agents. If you get in with an agent and you do a good deal, you buy something, they trust you. The phone, you'll get another phone call from say, I've got another one here for you, John, or whatever it might be. And what I do find also is that people are resistant to pick up the phone and speak to these agents, especially auctioneers. And auctioneers thrive on people speaking to them, because that's how they get more property to put in the auction and everything else. So there seems to be, oh, well, I've emailed them. And no, pick up the bloody phone and talk to them, because, you can have, again, a relationship. That's what it's about, creating relationships that will benefit both parties. And that's what I don't see happen enough these days. I see people emailing everybody. It's like, you get people saying, oh, I've analysed the deal. Can I do a bit of mentorship? Not a lot. I do some mentorship with a few people. I say, well, I've done all the data on it. I said, well, that's great. Well done. Have you rung up an agent? Oh, no, I haven't rung an agent. I said, well, ring an agent up. Ring up an agent, and they'll tell you that, yeah, that side of the road, they're worth 325 grand, but the other side of the road, they're only worth 290 grand because there's no sun. They're in the, there's no sun. They don't get the sun in the back garden, or they don't get this. You need to talk to agents, talk to people, not just data's fine, Emma. I'm not knocking data. Hayley Andrews, a great friend of mine on Property Elevator and everything. She's the data queen. My God, she knows some data on things. And I go, it's all very well, but I just ring an agent. She goes, what? I just ring the agent. I don't know all that data business. So yeah, and there's a balance between the two, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so that phoning someone, that's also life as well, because as I say, I've got 19-year-old boys, and they say things like, oh, should I email? No, just call them. Call them. Otherwise it's going to be, it'll go on and on.
What did Donald Trump do with that dreadful president in Russia? Rings him up, spends an hour and a half on the phone to him. Well, or probably a Zoom, wasn't it? Or whatever it would be. Yeah. But I mean, you get a relationship. I know it hasn't worked too well so far, but you never know. But bloody speak to people.
Yeah, and also I like what you talk about with the agents. And another thing that I found recently that is so obvious, but I hadn't touched on it, is ring the agent before. So if you've got a house that's been up for sale and then they've changed agents, the one original agent is more than happy to spill the beans.
Absolutely. They're bitter and twisted. Yeah. and the other thing I say when it's in an auction is go and see the neighbour next door, because the neighbour next door will tell you twice as much as the auctioneer will.
Yeah.
How long it's been on the market, who lived there, who died there, where it fell through 3 times or whatever it's done. You know about the crack, don't you, at the back? All this. So, talk to people.
Yeah, definitely. And then going back to sort of what you covered as well, taking on, these more challenging projects potentially is, and again, this was a total eye-opener. I saw you on a program going through your Ipswich waterfront projects, and you were talking about these grants, and you've talked about Homes England. and leveling up. And there's all these elements that I think sometimes with some of the education, we are kind of a bit focused on just the one route, you know, other people's money. But that's usually your next door neighbor or your parents or whatever. And actually there's a whole host of other things, and certainly we've got the no use empty schemes, sort of any properties that are empty, they've got some great funding as well. And so again, and I'm just answering it, but it sounds like because you've got to know so many people, because you've worked with housing associations, you're then finding out, oh, that pot of cash, well, where does that go? Is that kind of how you managed to find all these separate grants?
Who would have thought that Birmingham City Council, who are bankrupt, have got another 50 million off this government and had 25 million off the Conservative government? And what's a Conservative government giving a Labour council 25 million for? It's unbelievable. To buy houses, not build them, buy them. So we've sold houses in a development we've done to Birmingham City Council, who are meant to be bankrupt, but they're not well, they are bankrupt, but they've got money from grant. Fife Council in Scotland, we sold 26 properties to them. So all these councils have got these grants to buy brand new properties. It's amazing, really. But again, it's who you know, how you deal with it. And I think a lot of these property educators is that they sell one aspect, and it might be PD, it might whatever it might be, and they well, I suppose they do in a way that's the best thing, the best route for everybody. That is what you should all be doing. And it's not the case. There's lots and lots and lots of ways, like we said earlier, to make money on a property. And it's for you to decide what you want to do. It's not for an educator to decide. It's up for you. It's your money. And then the right educators and the right mentors and everything will support you in doing that because they've done it. And if they haven't done it, then you really shouldn't be being educated by them, in my view. But there we go.
Oh, I think that is absolutely actually a bit of a bugbear of mine. I think that is so key, and it works along line property developers, and I kind of compare it to marketing. So a marketing company, you go to a marketing company, and if they're into, I don't know, TikTok, they're going to tell you that you need to do TikTok. Absolutely. If they're still doing magazines, they're going to tell you want to do magazines. And it's the same, isn't it, with a lot of property trainers, that they are, for instance, rent-to-rent trainers, or they're assisted sales trainers. And actually, for you at this moment, that might not be for you. And
it may not suit. It might be fine to start off that way, and the other thing is they always put someone up on stage that has been very successful in what they've suggested. Now, you know, those people may have been really successful anyway. They might have had the push they need. They might have had they might have given them the confidence, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know, to make out that they're you know, that anyone can do it because one very quite, you know, clever motivated person can do it is I think misleading. I think it's misleading.
I agree. So you obviously have mentored and invested also in programs such as Property Elevator. Obviously, I was on the Property Graduate with you, which was honestly absolutely brilliant. But one of the things that you've kept repeating is one of the great things from that was meeting the other people there. And I'm still in contact with pretty much all of those people. It's really lovely. We go and talk at their events. We rock up, we see them. In fact, I've interviewed one or two of them. So yeah, I think that was really great. But I mean, that is a huge thing. And there must be some kind of mindset traits that you look for when you're choosing to back these certain people.
Yeah, I think you can't beat hard work. You know, if you gave me someone that, and I don't want to knock people going to university like you, Emma, because that would be wrong. And there's lots of people in university and being mega successful in the property world. So let's not, you know, everyone's different. But if you gave me a choice of someone that was highly educated but laid back but very bright, or someone who's not so bright but is very hardworking and tenacious, I'd always pick the person who is you know, works hard and tenacious every time, because it's almost come too easy to the other person.
Yeah, Yeah,
You know,
I totally agree with
and
that.
by the way, if the person is super bright, tenacious, and very hardworking, that's the perfect scenario. But there aren't many like that.
Exactly.
And no one would accuse me of being intellectual. But like how we started the interview, mindset. What's my mindset? Dogged determination. Being mentally consistent every day. Every day I wake up with the same mentality, the same drive, the same discipline, and that is what has kept the wolf from the door, shall we say, all these years.
Yeah. So with sort of developing that a little bit more for those kind of, perhaps starting out,
Yeah.
what are those kind of actionable mindset things that they could do every day? Is it literally that you write a list? Is it literally that you have some KPIs, some key performance indicators? What is it that you get up every day? Is it the same? Do you have these goals? How do you keep that daily dogged determination?
That's a very good question, Emma. I've got to have a think about that. I just think I think it's a natural thing. I don't think you can, with horses, and you and I know horses. You can, and I used to train race horses a little bit here, part time or whatever. You can get a horse in a race. Perhaps if it's fresh, you can get it to run better the first time out. Once it's had a break, but after the first time, it'll go back to the old habits. And if the horse is under pressure, it will go back to the same traits it had before. So if someone is naturally lazy, and I've known some very, very talented people who are bloody lazy, they will always be lazy. You can kick them up the arse and it will work for about a month, but then they go back to how they were before. And it's a natural thing. And I don't think you can't make someone an entrepreneur if they're not. You can't make someone hugely intellectual if they're not. To a great extent, if they're hardworking, I think hardworking is the key, because if they're hardworking, they're likely to be disciplined. And if they're disciplined, then they will go through the same systems maybe every day that gets you a deal. What I do, I have top 10 deals, top 10 or top 5, where I've got 10 deals that I'm looking at, perhaps, or 5 deals that I'm looking at, and I list them 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. And then what I do is, as more information comes in, number 5 might need to go to 2, number 2 might go to number 4. And I ask myself the question, to get the answer, ask the question, which one do I want to do first, and why do I want to do that? It may not be profit. It might be that it's twice as quick as another one, 3 times as easy as another one. So get your top 10 or top 5 deals you're looking at. You can probably only afford to buy 1 or 2. That's absolutely fine. But make sure you buy the right one out of that 5 or 10. And you'll be amazed. If you ask yourself the question to get the answer, you might find, what the hell am I doing that? Because I've got to spend all that money after I bought it. It's going to take me 2 years to do it. This one here, it's half the profit, but I can get it done in 9 months. Well, it's no brainer. I need to live. I need to earn the money. I need the money out. So, it's not always the big flashy deals that you want to be doing. I'd rather do. Someone came on Property Elevator ages ago. It was a live one, I think, at Landlord Show, and they said, I've done a few small deals, and I want to do big, sophisticated deals. I said, well, listen, I do big, sophisticated deals. I want to do small, unsophisticated deals that I can earn some quick money on. Totally different, because they thought that, that's what they've got to say, that's what they've got to do. They've got to do these massive deals, and everyone's doing deals bigger than them. It's not the size of the deal, it's the quality of the deal. And you can do 10 deals a year and they make no money, or you can do 1 good deal a year and make some money out of it. And that is the key, Emma. It's not about the amount or the size of those deals. It's about profit at the end of the day.
Yeah, incredible, John. And that is actually, for some people, they feel that there is this path, there is this ladder that you must follow, but actually you need to just go back to the basics, really, don't you? If it works, if it makes you money, you can do it quite quickly. Emma, why wouldn't you do that?
Absolutely. If you buy right, if you pay the right money, you've got choices. If you pay too much, you've only got one choice probably. But if you buy right, they say the selling is in the buying, and that's absolutely right. And people say, oh, well, I don't want to sell it. Well, that's fine, but you may want to sell it in 2 or 3 years, or your circumstances might change and you need to sell some of it, part of it, all of it, whatever it might be. So just to mask it by saying, oh, well, I don't care because I'm not selling it is irrelevant, because you still might want to refinance it. You still might want to revalue it, and all those things come into it. So you still need to know what you can sell the damn thing for.
Absolutely. Well, look, my final question before we do a very quick fire round is, you have just done so much, John. Obviously, we haven't even mentioned you've written property books, which are awesome. I really love your auction one. I'm always recommending it.
Thank you.
You've done big deals. You've done little deals. You've done the auction house. You've bought from an auction and then you've run auction house. You've had estate agencies. You've then gone on the tele and done, property elevator, property graduate, all of those kind of things. What is there one sort of shining thing that you love the most? If you were told, as of today, John, you can only do one more thing for the next 5 years, doesn't matter about money or anything like that, but just the thing that you absolutely love, what would you do?
That's a great question. And I didn't think I was very good at it, and I didn't think I would be very good at it, but I think speaking.
Okay.
I think speaking, because I didn't think I'd be very good at it. And I started doing it probably 6-7 years ago, and people went, actually, you're not too bad at this. And then I think with Property TV, where it's a great grounding, because they shove your camera in front of you, put a mic on and go, action. There's no second takes, really. You haven't got time for any of that. So all that sort of stuff has really helped me. And when I speak, I try and make sure that I'm a little bit controversial, that I'm a little bit cheeky.
You are.
1 or 2 people in the crowd who can take it, and it's always there's always some laughter, and hopefully I go on after an accountant's been on, or someone like that, and you just think, my God, what a dreadful subject to have to talk about, because I can talk about property in many different ways, and that makes a huge difference. I mean, some people, they're on a, although what they say is very interesting, very good, it's not the easiest thing to talk about and get a smile out of people. And I think, when you do business, it should be fun, and you should work with people you enjoy working with. And some are rogues, and, but you need to understand what a rogue, especially in the old days, a rogue was someone who, can, 1 minute they've got a Rolls Royce, next minute they're skint, next minute they're back doing bigger deals than you, and all the rest of it. And these people are characters, and you do, in the property industry, there's a lack of characters these days. And I think, you want to have a great night. You can have a great night out with a rogue. You probably don't want to do too much business with them, but you can have a great night out. And I think, that's and I miss that, because I just think, we don't really see those young people coming through at a very young age anymore. And I think that's because universities, going to university, which is, come full circle with what we're talking about to start with. But I honestly believe that. And I think that might change a bit now, because I think people are realising that perhaps some of the courses at these universities aren't all what they cracked up to be. So that's my answer there.
Speaking, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now our quick fire round. So just, whatever comes in, just a quick response. So one, who has shaped your property journey the most?
Mr. Boyce, who was my first backer.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. I've just done 2 deals with his son at the moment. We're just doing 2 deals. Yeah, after 40 odd years. So there you go. Yeah.
Oh, that is good. I love that.
Yeah.
What book has influenced your mindset the most?
Art of the Deal by Donald Trump.
Oh, love that.
One of the things he says in that book is absolutely right. Some of the best deals are the deals you don't do. You think,
oh, that's powerful.
Thank God I didn't do that. But then I've got a few which I think I wish I hadn't done that. But there you go. and that's the thing is, and the one thing I would say, you're going to make mistakes in this game. We all make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Don't beat yourself up about the mistakes. Just learn from them and don't do it again. But everyone wants it to be everything. I think everyone these days wants everything to be perfect, and that is just not It's just not going to happen. And I think that's really important, to be quite relaxed about it all if you can be. Don't beat yourself up. You're only as good as your next deal. Whether you've made £1 million the deal before or lost £1 million, it's irrelevant. It's gone. Forget it. Mindset, forget it. It's the next deal that counts, and be humble.
Yeah, that is great, John. That is great. I think you're going to like this one. If you could only invest in one type of property, what would it be and why?
Portfolio, residential portfolio that I can then bang out, buy it in bulk, like at cash and carry, empty the box and sell them one by one. Bang, 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 bang. I used to do that. Nowadays, it's so hard to find these portfolios that work. And one of the big problems is stamp duty. I've got someone I'm mentoring at the moment, and he's buying a block of flats, 4 flats in a block for £500,000, and the stamp duty is nearly 50,000. So you've got to remember that. So you can add 10% onto any purchase now with stamp duty, and it's just ridiculous. And at the higher level, if you're paying a few million quid for something, it's huge amount, huge sum.
Yeah, that is
and that's
huge.
Cash you've got to find. The bank won't lend you that.
Yeah, definitely. And what is a final question? What is your non-negotiable morning routine?
Feeding the horses.
How many have you got, John?
Too many. Too many. And the groom doesn't come in till a bit later. So, I'm out there at 6 o'clock feeding them. And I think, again, mental consistency, get up, make your bed. I spoke to, he died the other day of a heart attack, a guy called Simon Mann, who was caught up in he was a mercenary, and he spent 5 years in a prison in some foreign country, and he was tortured and everything. And we had a Zoom during lockdown, and we're helping each other on a few things. And he very interesting, very incredible guy. They did a series on TV about him and all sorts of stuff. And he said to me, and I said to him, "How did you survive 5 years? 3 years was in solitary confinement." And he said, my mental consistency was doing the same thing every day. Mental consistency, and that was, getting up. In the army, they teach you mental consistency. Get up, you make your bed, you might polish your shoes every morning at a certain time. Mental consistency, and doing the same thing. I used to think doing the same thing every day was boring and so on, but it isn't. It's routine, and routine is really good for mental health. And the other thing is, switch that bloody phone off at 7 o'clock at night. Switch it off. Give yourself a break from it, because if I don't switch my phone off at 7:30 every night, I must have 30 emails, and how am I going to relax? People say to me, "Oh, how's your mental health?" And I go, "It's great." "Oh, mine's not very good." So, "Well, do you switch your phone off?" They go, "No, I switch it off." Give yourself a break.
Brilliant. I love it, John. Well, look, thank you so much, John. It's
a pleasure.
Absolutely
lovely to see you again.
Wonderful to see you. And I'm just going to close this up. And I think today, what I've taken from you, John, is hard work.
Yep.
Seeing the opportunities.
Yep.
Discipline. And that's come about in many different elements of this, and relationships. So just to everyone out there, please do go and look John up. And sorry, I haven't asked you, John, where can everyone come to find you?
johnhowardproperty.com is my website. I've got a YouTube channel, and also I do, as you know, the odd masterclass. I do 4 a year because I'm busy doing my own stuff, but I think the next one is in June, the 16th and 17th of June, something like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So do jump on all of those. I'll put the links into the show notes so everyone can jump on that. And just finally, everyone, remember that property success isn't just about what you do. It's about how you think. And when you combine a strong strategy with an unstoppable mindset, there is no limit to what you can achieve. So do reflect and listen to everything that John has said today, but really think about what is kind of one action that you can take this week now to move you closer to your property goal. And of course, if you know anyone that perhaps is struggling, then do share this episode so they can also get this valuable knowledge from John, and it really could be the game changer that they need. And remember, the more people that we help, exactly like John does, then the greater our own wealth in every sense of the word. So growing this community really means growing the potential that we all have to succeed together. So do remember, your mindset is your greatest property. Keep building it.